First of all, I don't care about the law. I want to talk about the morality of it. In this video, I want to speak about political violence and specifically as it relates to the recent killing of Charlie Kirk. First, I need to say that in principle, I don't see myself as against political violence as a concept. If there was one person that was ruling over all of us and we decided to kill this political figure, then I would say that we are right in doing it. It's the right decision. If you asked me on a deeper level, where is your moral code? What do you believe in terms of morality? I would say that I have a belief in free expression. I care about a person's ability to say what they think without being persecuted for it, without fear of the government stepping in or violent retribution for what they said. And that's why the kind of reaction, the whole spectacle of this guy's killing, Charlie Kirk, concerns me. It's not because of some vague stance against political violence in all cases, but it's more so that from what I can see, that this is a person that did not have political power in terms of institutional power. He was not the CEO of a company that makes life-changing decisions for people. He was also not an elected official. This to me is a person that, to whatever extent you agree with or condone his ideas, was someone that made a livelihood and principally concerned himself with spreading his ideas and was killed for it. And that's not something that I agree with, and it's also not something that I really have any sympathy for celebrating the death. And I'm going to explain more specifically why in this video. So first of all, the reason why I mentioned that it's so important that this person did not have institutional power is because I see a lot of people drawing parallels between Charlie Kirk's killing and the killing of the United Healthcare CEO. I don't really see those two things as analogous. In no way am I defending one over the other, but they are still very different to me. I'll use myself as an example here. Let's say that I was the CEO of a healthcare company, and every day I'm making decisions about who gets life-changing surgery, who gets medical coverage, who gets to basically live or die, or at the very least, I greatly affect people's lives in terms of my decision-making. And let's say I decide to not process a claim or deny the request for one of your loved ones to get potentially life-changing surgery, and then you decide to kill me. Now again, I would not say that you're right in doing this, and I don't agree with this eye for an eye kind of approach. But yes, I would have a lot more sympathy for the person who decided to do that, as opposed to if I was just, let's say, a libertarian person who believed in the complete privatization of healthcare and, on a kind of policy level, advocated for things that, while they might be dangerous if they played out, does not have any power in terms of them being an elected official or them being the CEO of a company who actually makes these direct decisions. So yes, I do see it as very different. Again, not condoning one or the other. But no, I don't see the killing of a healthcare CEO to be on the same level as killing Charlie Kirk in terms of how sympathetic I feel for a person who chooses to do that, or even to celebrate it. I see a lot of terrible arguments from both sides as to how big a deal it is that people are celebrating this guy's death. On the left, I see a lot of people categorizing this guy as a Nazi, and on the right, I see a lot of people lionizing Charlie Kirk, softening what his message was in some regards, especially around Israel, trying to make it out that this guy was, going to turn, was in the process of turning against the people funding him or Israel or whatever. There being very spurious evidence for that being a thing. But on the left, I see the guy described as like a Nazi. So the exact opposite. And I'm not here to get in the weeds in regards to that, because to me it doesn't matter. Even if he was a card-carrying Nazi who espoused National Socialism and called for eugenics, a full-on Nazi, I would still feel the same way. You've got to remember, first of all, that people can change. People can evolve in their beliefs, and many do. There are many people who get Nazi tattoos covered up. There are many people who are, former Ku Klux Klan members, etc., who go on to stand against racial hatred. But even if he didn't, it still would be a person just expressing their beliefs and being killed for it. It's not like this person, again, had the institutional power that I described before, someone in a position to actually do anything other than just spread their beliefs. I am speaking mostly to the left in this video. I also see people on that side basically engaging in whataboutism, talking about why do you care so much about his death in comparison to other current events, people dying in Palestine, in Yemen, etc. And that really is just a whataboutism to me, because there are people throughout history, let's say, for example, Martin Luther King, we still get taught about his assassination. There are just some deaths that are more politically significant than others. It doesn't make one life worth more than another intrinsically, but that's just the reality of the situation. It's not something that can be used to, distract the idea that there is a lot of suffering going on at any given time. That doesn't make this any less of a relevant issue. Following on from that, I personally, and also I would say a lot of people that are on the left, see Trumpism as a cult. The following of Donald Trump to be cult-like behavior. This is a person that has contradicted himself on many, many issues and continues to do so. If you are a leftist, a left-wing person, and you do see Trumpism as a cult, then surely you would have to see people like Charlie Kirk as high-ranking, if anything, but still members of the cult. People who have drunk the Kool-Aid, have been indoctrinated into this belief, and at some level, as people who have fallen for a cult, have become mentally affected. They're kind of mentally ill. Does it feel right in the same way now, if you contextualize it like that, to celebrate the death of a mentally ill person who is, at least to some extent, acting out symptoms of mental illness? Following on from that, the big question then is, who should lose their jobs for celebrating this guy's death? And should people be losing their jobs? If you're someone who supports free speech, who should be allowed to work what job in terms of them having posted things on social media, either celebrating or making jokes about a person like Charlie Kirk's death? This is a very difficult thing to fully define, and I don't think there's a hard and fast rule for it. I do think it, though, does go back to power again in terms of what positions should require what level of sanity and or cleanliness. Sanitization is the word I was looking for, in terms of a person's online or social media presence. So I can just give examples. Let's say, for example, I learned that my doctor had been celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk on his social media page. Let's say he'd put out a TikTok celebrating the guy's death. I probably wouldn't want to continue seeing that doctor. If anything else, it's really mainly for the mental illness component. To think that that's like an acceptable thing to do as a doctor is what concerns me the most, more than the actual contents of what he could be posting there. So yeah, I probably wouldn't want that to continue seeing that doctor. However, if I had come to learn that the same doctor had, let's say I'm in the US, and he had posted something more celebratory about the killing of the United Healthcare CEO, specifically because one of his patients was denied surgery by that company, I still wouldn't think it's right. But I would draw a distinction. I would be a lot more sympathetic for a doctor that posted that, and to be honest, I probably still would continue seeing the guy. I wouldn't, it wouldn't be a deal breaker to me. I'm just more sympathetic to someone in that position. I can see their side of it more. So another example I would use, let's say the person who packed my most recent Amazon order. If I came to find that they had been making posts on social media celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, no, I don't think that they should be completely unpersoned. I don't think that they should lose their job or face any that kind of repercussions in terms of them just working at Amazon. I think that there have to be some jobs that people can do, even if they post, this kind of stuff. It has to be, if it's about the separation, there's a great deal of separation between, direct harm that this person, even if this person is completely anti-white, Christian, anti-man, whatever. No, I don't think it should affect their ability to work a job at Amazon. I would say, for one final example, let's say it was a person teaching at let's say I had a kid and they were teaching at my child's school. It wouldn't really matter who. I probably don't want school teachers celebrating anyone's death on social media. Probably full stop. Again, it's mostly about the mental illness kind of angle in terms of a person who decides to do that. It's a level of instability that I'm just not comfortable with. So it wouldn't matter if it's Charlie Kirk or the healthcare CEO, whoever else. It doesn't matter what relation that person has to the person who died. I don't want to see them celebrating a person's death on the internet. So it's not a hard and fast rule, in my opinion. Finally, I'll talk about jokes. I do draw a distinction between celebrating a person's death and making jokes about it. God knows that I've made my fair share of jokes about George Floyd. To be fair, I'm not trying to be a school teacher. And I would probably say, even just with my digital footprint, probably that's not the right job for me, for someone who likes to make edgy jokes on the internet. So Again, I would say that there are some things that even joking, yes, it can be, it is concerning if a teacher is even making jokes about this kind of thing. But for pretty much any other job, for most jobs, I don't think a person having made a joke about Charlie Kirk's death or a joke about George Floyd's death, in the broad sense, when it is actually a joke and not a passive-aggressive way to signal that you actually agree with this thing happening, then I don't see that most jobs should be off limits for a person who does that. So to summarize, while yes, I see it as generally wrong to celebrate a person's death, I do draw a distinction between people with institutional power, CEOs of large companies that make life or death decisions, and elected politicians, and then people like Charlie Kirk, who ostensibly made their money expressing ideas. In terms of people losing their jobs, it's really a case-by-case basis, but it still does come back to the person's power as it relates to how much responsibility they have in an ideal society to keep their social media presence clean.